Hydrangea can look completely healthy going into next spring and still hand you zero flowers, not one. And the reason will trace straight back to something you did or didn't do this month. Stick around because there is exactly one thing you need to get right in August. And if you are the kind of gardener who forgets to water half the time, this video was made for you. If you like the honest, no-fuss version of plant care, the kind where I tell you what actually matters and skip the rest, go ahead and subscribe now. It costs nothing, and it might save your entire bloom season. Okay, let's get into it. Here is the part almost nobody knows, and it changes everything about how you treat your hydrangea this month. If you own a big leaf, an oak leaf, or a mountain hydrangea, the plant is doing something invisible to you right now. Somewhere between late July and September, it is forming next year's flower buds, not next month's, next year's. These buds form inside the little joints where the leaves meet the stem, and they are so small you would never spot them just by looking. They sit there fully formed, hidden, all the way through autumn and winter, waiting for spring to tell them to open. So the flower you admire next June was actually built right now, in the heat of August, while you were probably not even thinking about that plant anymore. And here's the part that should genuinely worry you a little. If those buds get disrupted this month, whether from drying out, from heat stress, or from getting accidentally pruned off, the plant does not just make fewer flowers next year, it can abort the whole process. Bud formation just stops. And a plant that fails to set buds in August does not bloom lightly next spring. It does not bloom at all. That is the mystery behind something a lot of people have lived through. Two beautiful blooming seasons, and then out of nowhere, a big healthy green bush that gives you absolutely nothing. Everyone assumes it was bad luck or a rough winter or bad soil. Almost nobody looks back 10 months to the dry, hot August before it happened. And that is exactly why the mistake keeps repeating. The cause and the result are separated by so much time that your brain never connects them. Now here's the good news, and this is where the lazy part comes in. You do not need to hover over this plant all month. You do not need a complicated routine. You need to get one habit right, repeat it a couple of times a week, and otherwise leave the plant alone. That is genuinely the whole strategy. If you only remember one section of this video, make it this one. Hydrangeas have shallow, fibrous roots that sit close to the surface, usually within the top 6 to 10 inches of soil. That happens to be exactly the layer that dries out fastest once August heat sets in. It is not a plant with a deep taproot quietly pulling moisture from a couple of feet down. Its whole root system lives in the part of your yard that gets hit hardest by hot weather. So here's the test before you even touch a hose. Push a finger 2 to 3 inches into the soil near the base of the plant. If it feels cool and a little damp down there, walk away even if the leaves look droopy. We will talk about why that droop is often nothing in a minute, but if the soil is dry at that depth, it is time to water, and here is how to do it properly. Apply roughly 1 to 1 and 1 2 gallons of water per square foot around the root zone, delivered as a slow, deep soak rather than a quick splash from a watering can. This matters more than people realize. A light daily sprinkle only wets the very top of the soil, maybe an inch down, and nothing more. The plant responds to that by keeping its roots up near the surface, right where the water is, which means you have just trained a shallow-rooted plant to become even shallower, and now it cannot survive 2 days without you standing there with a hose. That is the opposite of lazy gardening, and it is exactly the trap most well-meaning people fall into. A deep, infrequent soak does the reverse. It pulls the roots downward into soil that holds on to moisture longer, which is what actually lets you get away with watering only 2 or 3 times a week instead of every single day. Less effort, better plant. That is the trade you want. Timing matters here too. Water early in the morning if you can manage it. In the middle of the day, exposed soil in August heat can climb past 140 degrees Fahrenheit at the surface, and a huge portion of the water you apply, sometimes well over half, evaporates before it ever reaches the roots. Morning watering skips that problem entirely. The soil is cooler, the water actually soaks in, and the plant starts its day already resourced before the sun gets brutal. One more detail, and it is a small one, but worth doing. Water at the base of the plant into the soil, not over the top of the leaves and flowers. Wet foliage sitting in warm, humid August air is basically an invitation for fungal problems like leaf spot. Keep the water low and you avoid that entirely. Now, since this whole video is built around doing less, here is my favorite lazy trick for this exact problem. Take an old plastic bottle, cut the bottom off, and bury it upside down near the root zone with the neck sticking slightly above the soil line. Fill it up when you water, and it slowly releases moisture straight down to the roots over time, bypassing surface evaporation completely. It is a 5-minute setup that quietly does your watering job for you between visits. That is about as lazy as good gardening gets. Here is where a lot of people accidentally undo all of that good watering work, so pay attention. Hydrangeas are dramatic. They will droop hard in the afternoon heat, usually somewhere between noon and 4 p.m., and it looks alarming. It looks like the plant is dying and begging for water, but that afternoon droop is very often just the plant losing water through its leaves faster than the roots can resupply it in real time, even when the soil underneath is perfectly moist. It is a temporary imbalance, not an emergency, and it usually corrects itself once the temperature drops in the evening. So do not judge the plant by how it looks at 3 or in the afternoon. Judge it by how it looks the next morning. If it is still wilted after a full cool night to recover, and the soil 2 to 3 inches down is genuinely dry, that is real drought stress, and it needs water. If it is standing up fine in the morning and only flopping again once the afternoon heat returns, that is normal summer behavior, and the correct move is to do nothing at all. This matters because watering a plant that is only heat wilting when the soil is already moist is one of the most common mistakes people make with good intentions. Extra water on top of already wet soil pushes oxygen out of the ground and creates conditions where roots can start to rot. And root damage caused by overwatering can produce the exact same wilted, sad-looking plant as a plant that is too dry, which is what makes this whole thing so confusing if you do not know the trick. Morning test, finger test, and you will never guess wrong again. This next part is where being lazy actually works in your favor, because the correct move for most of August is to simply not do these two things. If you have a big leaf, oak leaf, or mountain hydrangea, the safe pruning window for a real shaping cut closes around the 1st of August. After that date, any significant pruning physically removes the little nodes where next year's invisible flower buds are already forming. You would be cutting off next June's flowers without even knowing it, because there is nothing visible on the plant to warn you. There is a second problem too. A late cut removes the plant's natural growth control and often pushes out a fresh flush of soft new growth right when the plant should be slowing down and preparing for winter instead. That new growth has run out of season. It will not have time to harden before the first frost, so the cold kills it, and that dead tissue takes potential flower buds down with it. So after the 1st of August, the rule is simple. Touch nothing but dead, broken, or diseased wood. If the spent brown flower heads genuinely bother you and you have to remove something, there is one safe cut. Snip immediately below the old flower head and go no lower than the first pair of healthy leaves beneath it. Next year's buds are tucked in right around there, so anything below that point is off limits. If you have a panicle or a smooth hydrangea, such as an Annabelle type, the rules are a little more relaxed since those varieties build their flower buds fresh each spring rather than carrying them over winter. But a hard prune in August still is not a good idea because cutting now interrupts the plant's process of moving stored energy from leaves down into the roots, which is part of what builds cold hardness before winter arrives. Their real pruning window is late winter, so the lazy answer here is simply to wait. This one trips up a lot of caring, well-meaning gardeners because the logic seems backwards. The plant is clearly busy doing important work, so surely feeding it would help, right? It does not. Nitrogen tells a plant to grow leaves everywhere on every species. So a late feed in August pushes the hydrangea to put out a fresh flush of soft and new growth at exactly the point in the season when it should be slowing down and toughening up instead. That new growth has nowhere to go. It runs out of time before frost hits, dies back over winter, and damaged stems are not reliable carriers of next year's flower buds. So, a late feed does not just fail to help your bloom count, it can actively work against it. There is real data behind this too. Standard high nitrogen fertilizer programs applied at the wrong time have been linked to a noticeably lower bloom count compared to plants left alone entirely, with some observations showing a drop of over 40%. That is a steep price for a bag of fertilizer that felt like it was helping. So the rule is simple. Heavy feeding should be finished by midsummer. In August, the bag goes back in the shed until spring. Nothing to buy, nothing to measure out, nothing to remember. That is one entire chore removed from your to-do list. Quick bonus for anyone growing a blue variety and wondering about color. High phosphorus bloom booster fertilizers are actually part of why a blue hydrangea can suddenly turn pink or mauve on its own. The phosphorus binds with aluminum in the soil, and it is aluminum uptake that keeps those blue tones stable. Feed the wrong product at the wrong time, and you are quietly locking the color out. And if this video is saving you from a mistake you did not know you were making, go ahead and hit subscribe now, because next month there is another plant about to make a version of this exact same mistake. Here is the last piece, and it is genuinely the laziest, highest payoff task on this entire list. First, clear away weeds and any fallen leaf debris sitting at the base of the plant, since decaying leaf litter against the stems tends to raise the risk of disease. Then, lay down a layer of organic mulch, about 2 to 3 inches deep, using something like shredded hardwood or pine bark. Keep it pulled back a few inches from the actual stems, so it is not packed directly against the woody tissue, since trapped moisture can invite rot. Why bother at all? Because mulch slows down evaporation, which means your watering lasts longer between sessions. It keeps the soil temperature more stable through a heat wave, protecting those shallow roots we talked about earlier, and it blocks weeds from competing with your hydrangea for the same water. Out of everything on this list, mulch is the only task that keeps quietly working for you every single day, even on the days you do not think about the plant at all. 2 quick extras if they apply to you. If your hydrangea is in a pot rather than in the ground, everything changes a little, since containers dry out much faster with no surrounding soil to buffer the heat. In real August conditions, potted hydrangea can need water daily, so check by touch instead of following a fixed schedule. And always let water drain fully through the bottom, rather than let the pot sit in a saucer of standing water. And if you have a big leaf or smooth variety with those big heavy flower heads, they can catch wind like a sail during a summer storm, which is enough to snap a stem and take out developing buds with it. A simple wooden stake and a soft tie is a 5-minute fix that can save you a whole season of damage. Let's bring this all together, because it is actually a short list once you strip away the explanations. Whatever your hydrangea does next June was decided this August, quietly, with nothing visible to warn you along the way. The one thing that matters most is watering correctly. Deep soaks at the base, a couple of times a week delivered in the morning, checked with a finger 2 to 3 inches down, rather than judge by how droopy the plant looks in the afternoon sun. The 2 things you get to skip are pruning and feeding. After the 1st of August, leave the shears alone unless you are removing dead or broken wood, and put the fertilizer away completely until spring. Both of those are genuinely less work, not more, and both of them protect flowers you cannot even see yet. And the one passive bonus that keeps helping without any extra effort from you is a couple of inches of mulch around the base. That is the entire strategy. Less cutting, less feeding, less guessing, one correct habit done consistently. This really is the lazy way to do it, and it happens to also be the correct way. Drop a comment and tell me which type of hydrangea you actually have. Big leaf, oak leaf, mountain, panicle, or smooth. Since the pruning answer is genuinely different for each one, and I am curious which one shows up the most down there. And while you're at it, tell me where you're watching from, because August heat looks very different depending on where you live, and I always like seeing how far this reaches. Here is the whole idea one more time before you go. A hydrangea does not fail in the season. You notice something is wrong. It fails quietly in the season nobody was paying attention to it. Do the one thing this month, leave the rest alone, and next June takes care of itself. If this helped, subscribe, because there is another plant making this exact same invisible mistake right now, and I will be covering it next. See you in the next one. If this story changed the way you look at the hidden life of your garden, please subscribe and like the video. We are uncovering the botanical history and secrets that others have tried to overlook. Let's cultivate a better future for your landscape. The next horticultural treasure will be open soon.